Welcome to another episode
101.
Well,
101 of the Embrace the Awkward podcast, where we have but one goal in mind, and that is to help you handle awkward better. If you haven't heard my voice in a while, I'm Kyle, and we you haven't heard our, I should say that, but we have big news to share with you, and it could be controversial, could be there could be some stuff from this, and so I'm gonna just come right out of the gate and say it. I grew a mustache,
Yeah,
and
that's
um,
why we're doing a video version of this podcast
yeah, right,
for
yeah,
that
we
mustache.
yeah, so that comes with its own awkward moments. My students are not a fan at all. The difference, I do this every December, but the difference is that this year my wife digs the mustache, which is new for me.
Now,
Uh,
why this year? Did you shape it differently?
Well, I think it's more full than it's been in the
there
past.
you go.
Typically, I just do it for like a week or a week and a half or whatever. And we can't all grow facial hair as quick as Kyle can. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
Sure.
could do this, just not this.
well, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. So,
So,
but
does any of you students come up and just like do this? Because some of my students come up and do this, and I'm like, "What are you doing?"
yeah, I would never, and I would crawl out of my skin if it even got close to doing that. So, yeah, there's no way. But in other news, though, we are you may be the listener. You may be watching this episode. This is a new thing we're doing. This is the first time we're filming our podcast.
Yeah, we finally got the technology. Youth pastor's budget. We finally got a camera, so we can just not just do microphones.
Yeah, so you're seeing us, and you're probably like, I will now that I've seen them, it's ruined for me.
Yeah,
I was picturing these glorious
it's the last episode.
superhero looking people with super strength, and
Yep.
and that's not how they look. So we've got a fun bittersweet episode for you today. Kyle, do you want to kind of get us started on where we're going?
Yeah,
And
so this is a big kind of turning point for the podcast that kind of launched, what is it, summer 2020. So about 5 years now. And so now we are kind of pivoting, and DJ's leaving us. This is one of the last episodes he will host. He might come back and visit if we, want him to.
Yeah.
Just kidding. And so DJ, we want to take this episode and actually fully embrace the awkward and talk about people leaving and transition. Because a lot of times I don't think in ministry, pastors, particularly youth pastors, leave well. Like they give 2 weeks notice, and this is my last sermon, bye, and they just totally forget about the students, or they take it out, like 2 months. I don't know if you've been a part of this situation where the youth pastor says, "Okay, I'm going to go to the end of summer," and so the whole summer is like, "This is my last Wednesday night. This is my last camp," and it's just super awkward. So what we wanted to do is DJ is transitioning out, Mike is transitioning in. We wanted just to be fully open and transparent. So our goal is not to edit this podcast, and just kind of say, okay, what's happening, why we're doing this, and talking about what's the podcast look like for the future. Because it's been over a year since we've had this kind of podcast. All right. So, DJ, here's my first question.
okay.
Are you being fired from this podcast?
Yeah, it was a super awkward conversation. And really, over the course of the year, what's been happening is Kyle's been trying to fire me, and I've just been begging and pleading and screaming and saying no.
I'm getting these nasty emails from his wife and everything. Please don't.
And so we've had blackmail, we've been really taking it serious. No, not getting fired. This is Kyle and I really were over the last year. We talked many times about what's next for the podcast, what do we need to do to get it rolling, and gosh, a bottom line for me was kind of I had the long story short, there's a lot of transition in my current job. For anyone who doesn't remember, it's been a while. I moved to Kansas City. My wife and I took a job as a high school pastor, and a lot of staff transition, a lot of seasons were just changing for me personally. And Kyle and I had many conversations with a repeating theme where I was saying gosh, this deserves so much more time than I'm able to give it right now. The list, Kyle, when we created this, we just constantly had this filter of we're doing this for youth influencers, for youth workers, for
Right.
people in ministry, for parents, for people who teachers, and like we're doing that. Like you, the listener, were the people that we were doing this for, and I was putting like the time that I had to do my job and be a husband, to be a family member and a friend up against the podcast, and just wasn't like liking that. And so it was a couple months ago when Kyle and I were on a phone call, and we're just saying like, hey, I think that the right thing for the podcast is going to be to find someone who can come in and like keep this going, because like my heart for youth workers and youth pastors and youth leaders has not changed. I'm still in youth ministry. I feel like it's important to say that I'm not like stepping
Yeah.
away from
Yeah.
youth ministry. Just for like our like peeps who've been around for years now, like I shifted into a new role as next gen pastor this summer, so I oversee like fourth grade through young adult, and that's all the fun stuff that I need to say about that. But still doing youth ministry, still feel called to youth ministry, still loving youth ministry. But just a new season for me and a new season for the podcast. And I'm really excited for you, the listener, to get more content and more consistency like you guys really like deserve.
Yeah. So that was your kind of speech, if you will, giving a reason, the public reason. Let's ask a few deeper questions just to clarify, to make sure, there's not a scandal. We'll Instagram it and say, okay, is this really what's happening? So
Okay.
first, have you done some grave sin that we now need to cover up and you need to leave for family?
Well, it depends on what you call grave and depends on what you call sin. So no, no, absolutely not.
Okay. You're a sinner, just not a grave sin leaving the podcast. Okay. Second, did you ask for more money and it was denied, and so now you're going on a bigger and better things?
Totally,
Okay.
100%.
All
Yeah.
right.
Wait, you were getting paid?
Yeah.
Oh,
It takes 50
good to know.
episodes.
Good to know. Good to know. All right.
Yeah, okay. So we'll get that out of the way. It's one of those weird things is like and I was a youth when one of my youth pastors left. And then I've also left several churches, and it's hard. And some students feel betrayed. Some like, oh, okay, you're gone. And I remember a couple years ago, I came back and I talked to some of my youth who were growing up. They're now adults, and they totally forgot. Oh yeah, you did leave my during my senior year. They totally forgot I left. It was just so there's a spectrum of how people receive it. So I don't know how you will receive it, but this is a big transition. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is why continue on without DJ. That was actually a question, legit. Before I had a conversation with DJ, I literally, and I know I'm not trying to Jesus juke this, but prayed and said, okay, do we continue this on? Is this some vanity exercise? And I thought the format's already there. Um, the embrace the awkward is universal. It's not attached to me or to any one particular person. Um, and there's still a lot of information I want to give, and I wish I knew when I was younger. So I felt okay. Let's continue it on, and it's up to you, the audience, if you are going to receive this well or not. I'm not going to push it just because I want to do it. If it's responds well, we'll keep going. If not, we could do something else. That's totally fine. So I
Fire the
really
next guy.
what go for it.
Hire the next guy too if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, yeah. It's always the next guy's fault. There you go. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. Speaking of which, Mike, how are you? Um, I want to kind of just we're going to have some little bit more introduction as throughout the podcast for you, but
Sure.
really quick, who are you? What's your ministry experience, and why in the world do you feel you can replace DJ?
I mean, that's a lot going on there, but I just want to say I do appreciate being on the podcast, of course, and uh, just a little bit about me. Of course, my name is Mike. I have a wife. Her name is Rebecca. So if I ever talk about her, just want to place that out there. I don't want to don't want anybody to be confused about that. All right.
Yeah, just some
Uh,
woman.
I know, right? Like, we get the name out there. We went to Manhattan Christian College. We graduated a few years ago, both with youth ministry degrees. We got married in August of 2023. We got a couple dogs, so they take up a lot of our time. And I think
Okay.
total for youth ministry experience, I'm sitting about 2.5 years right now. So I'll finish up my third year. here in this small church in Kansas in May. I'll be the kind of the end of my third as we start
Yeah.
camp and all those things. So
So you go
uh,
by Mike, okay?
I
But
do.
on the screen it says Michael, and there's other things. And do you spell Michael
Yeah.
with an A-E or E-A? Like, give me a quick story on how that is, Mike.
Yeah. So man, the way I had to figure this out was just tough. Okay, dealing with government stuff is just terrible. You never want to do that. Um, so growing up, I think, I talk to my mom about this story all the time, and I was just like, she spelled my name Micheal, and just my whole life, I'm like, why? Like, why does that just doesn't
Why?
make sense? You know, I don't know. Maybe it was cool in 2000. I don't know, but she was just, I don't really know. And so, but she's like, that's how we spelled it. And so, when I was born, the nurse had filled out my paperwork, and she had spelled it AEL. My mom had no idea, no idea, absolutely no idea. And so, my entire life, if you looked at like my social security card, it's spelled Micheal,
Yeah. Okay.
and that's cool. And then you go to my birth certificate, and it says Michael, and I'm like, wait. So I'm fast forward throughout my life. I'm at the DMV. I'm ready to get my license. I've figured it out. Right. I've studied for this test. Got it all ready. And I'm giving my paperwork to the lady at the counter, and she's like, "Hey, by the way, this won't be a big deal today, but you should really get this fixed." And I'm like, "Wait, what? What do you mean? This is
So
how
you
I
lived
spell my
16
name."
years. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, this is now a problem." And so, like, my signature was awesome, and then I just ruined it because switching an A and an E,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's just throws the flow. And that's kind of what happened there. I don't really know how else to explain it. Now I just do the AEL and roll with it. I know my
Yeah.
mom wasn't super happy about it at first. She's like, "Well, that's not how I spell your
Did you
name."
change any documentation?
Oh no.
Okay. So now I still, DJ, do you
I
know what it's supposed to be? Because I'm still confused on which one it's
I mean,
supposed to
I
be
have
right
to
now.
go by my birth certificate, so it's AEL.
Okay.
And
I
so
Well, like
they,
I'm just jealous through this whole story that you were at the DMV and they said it's not a big deal.
Right.
I've never
dude,
heard of the DMV saying it's not a
I would
big
have
deal.
been so mad if they sent me home.
That's
All
like what
right,
they
like
do. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That is true. Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm jealous of that.
just realizing that. Yeah.
I have no idea. And so that's now when I here's the hurdle I go through now is when I fill out official paperwork, it asks for other names you went by, and I have to write it differently just in case.
I go by Michael and Michael.
They're like, "Yeah, that's great, buddy.
Someone calls you
Figure it
Michael and you
out."
say,
Man,
that's my government name.
if I
Call
was a
me.
worker and I saw that, I was like, you jerk. That's not the same thing. I'm like, you're messing with me.
Yeah.
So getting back to the episode, here's kind of the format where this all started. Um, there was an experienced youth worker and what I would say is inexperienced youth worker. So DJ, when we started, you were how many years into ministry? One?
I think I was around, yeah, 1 year,
Yeah.
and I'm at 7 now,
Yeah.
starting
So
my
Mike,
eighth.
yeah, that's why I really like this format is because when I was a young youth worker, I'm 20 years plus now into youth ministry. I really wanted someone to speak into me who went through that. I had a lot of lead pastors who had, oh, I did 2 years of youth ministry. Here's what it is 18 years ago. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it was they had such good intentions, but drove me nuts because it wasn't relevant to the modern youth ministry. And that was early 2000s. So that was 20 years ago. And it's totally different. So, Mike, I am super glad you are joining as a co host and taking over DJ. You have some big shoes to fill. But, Mike, what size of shoes do you wear right now?
Sevens.
See, they sevens.
No,
What? I was
13.
like, that
13s.
surprised
All
me.
right. Yeah, 13s.
Okay, you could definitely fill DJ's shoes.
I thought you
DJ,
were asking me how many toes I had.
yeah.
My bad.
You will bust out of my shoes.
Yeah.
So
That's all
you're
right.
you're the right person for the job.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good to
Awesome.
know. Good to know.
Thank you, Mike.
So
Well,
we go ahead. Wait, what were you gonna say?
Well, no, you go ahead, and then you're more tenured, so
Oh
I'll let
well,
you go
well,
first.
thanks. What can I say? So we want to what we want to do is Kyle, we started this. This was kind of like a COVID thing for us, and I think it was really innovative because nobody started a podcast during COVID.
It was revolutionary.
And so but we want to look back, like we're like, around like we're 72, 73, 80 some episodes into this, and want to look back on some of these things that we've done. And so, Michael, Mike, we're sorry.
See,
See what I
there you
did?
go.
There you
We're
go.
gonna let you have an opportunity to just kind of help Kyle and I reflect with our listeners on like what the
Sure.
past looked like for us. So, you got some questions for us to kind of think through looking back on the podcast?
Sure. So first things first, I think everybody deserves to know, like, just what have you guys been doing? Like, why did it take over a year to put out an episode? All right, it's not that hard, guys. It's just a microphone.
Right.
All right,
Right. Right.
what took so
Yeah.
long? What's been
So,
going on?
DJ, do you want to go first or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay.
I've just been lollygagging. I've been
Okay. Good. Let's get to the heart of it right here.
I've been doing work on the old truck and fishing, and obviously this has been also like a year-long vacation for me too, and so wanted to protect that off time. And no, like truthfully, in a way where I can say this and not sound like I'm just trying to make excuses, like Kyle and I have been, this is a really cool thing that we get to celebrate about, what like we get to thank God for, that we've been busy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
ministry has been like booming is a weird word to use, but like we have found ourselves very busy with mission trips and retreats and camps and events, and
Mhm.
um, adding staff and losing staff, and like you name it, cool things to celebrate. But like every time we got close to getting ready to set some stuff down, we were trying to set dates, and we're like, okay, well, let's try to go for April. We're like, oh well, I've got our massive fundraiser, so can we go for May? And it's like, okay,
Right.
well, I've got end of school year when the graduate, okay, well, let's go June. Well, okay, well, I've got camp, well, let's go July. Okay, well, that's when my camp is. Okay, well, let's go. Like that's the type, like there's just tons of stuff happening that not want to use as an excuse, but a cool celebration of like, we're not doing a podcast and then talking about how to do ministry and not doing it. Like we're having a lot of fun in youth ministry. And that's how I would answer that question. Kyle, what would you say?
No, I would totally agree. It's all your fault.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
No, so a couple things happened. One, leadership opportunities really just exploded in my world. And so when you are a leader of something, as you know, you just have to have more time dedicated to it. So there's been a lot of stuff just even outside of youth ministry that has taken up my time. And then you have mission trips and new staff and everything like that. I didn't change my church, but I definitely changed several roles in my church. My title is actually next gen pastor now, which just means youth pastor plus, because they don't really have a term for what I do, but it's very time consuming. And I also want to point out, single DJ is totally different than married DJ. All right. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. He should prioritize his wife. But that yeah, it just this it's different, right? And then if or whenever you have kids, it's a whole nother problem with that too. So that's just the reality. And so when my kids have been getting older, there's more time things that are attached to it as well. So now sports and fun events. So we've been doing ministry, but the podcast was put on hold. What's interesting, and here's a little tidbit, Mike. Our last episode was episode 72, and it came out December 2023. So we recorded episodes. DJ and I recorded episodes, but we never actually put them out. So it's technically been 2 years since
Wow.
we've done the podcast. But for us, it's been less than a year because we record these episodes, we just never put them out. I don't know. They might remain lost and we'll never put them out. I don't know. But
In the
just, that's
archive.
a little fact,
Yeah.
fun fact.
hmm Wow.
That's what we've
Yeah,
been doing.
those archives are going to be legendary one day.
Yeah.
I mean, after you guys are mega church pastors and we're able to
Yeah,
dig up these old files, and
there you go.
we'll
Right.
have the answers. So that'll be
Yeah.
good.
Right. Right.
And I have this question personally, and I think a lot of people have this question also. It's just kind of, how did this podcast get started? And what was your original like vision? Like, what did you think it was going to be? What are some of your goals that you were just like, this is what we want to do?
Yeah, I shared this a little bit earlier, but it's the lockdown and it's the summer 2020. And for me, I was kind of bored. I was like, okay, um, we just are getting back into it, but people are still hesitant. And a lot of youth pastors were asking me, "Hey, what do you do for your shutdown? Hey, what do you do?" And I didn't realize how much information out there was lacking in the youth ministry world because we've never done a global pandemic and shut down. And then when I started having lunches with youth pastors, they would also ask, "Well, now what do I do?" Or I really worked on this sermon series. That's great, but it's 20 weeks long. Should I do it?" And so that really kind of got into my head. Is like, man, I wish I could coach or help someone helped me when I was younger. And then this scrawny little kid that I thought was weird just got a job in in Kansas and was like, okay, I'll call him up, see if he's interested. So I remember I'm on a walk. I'm literally walking this street and I'm outside. Hey, how's it going? And DJ, I don't know if you remember this, but you were just like, hey, and you kind of acted like, why are you calling me? And I felt a little creeper. I got this old man calling this young kid, even though you're an adult. And and then I was like, I don't remember the pitch, but I was like, hey, I want to do this, and I need a co-host. Are you up for it? And do you remember what you said?
I have no idea.
Here's what here's what did the first thing. This started it all. Yeah, I guess. That was the start of all of it. It's like, okay, I'll take that. Maybe a stronger yes will come. But then you
That's
got
so
really excited.
well,
So,
and you had to earn my full yes because after that phone call, we went to McAllister's Deli, and that like the nice meal really sealed the deal for me.
oh, and I paid for it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Get that tea, get that sweet tea. And so it started with this concept of a veteran youth worker and a young youth worker sharing ideas because one thing that DJ brought many things to the table. One thing that DJ brought to the table was just some good topics. Like for me, I was like, okay, I'll share this, this, and this. And DJ's like, yeah, but I need to know about this now. Like this is a relevant topic now. And I didn't always know that. When you've been in youth ministry, there's kind of this institutional knowledge that you just accept and you don't really think about, well, why do we do that? And when you're brand new to it, you're asking those good questions. So DJ's perspective really helped. And he's a much better host than I am. I love answering questions. But DJ kind of moves it along and keeps things going and definitely has a much better introduction and outro than I ever would. So, DJ, I am very grateful for you being the co-host and that you said yes.
Dude, yeah. It for me starting out on this podcast, I was like a year or less. I mean, like, and I was at less than a year into my first full-time role when COVID hit. And like without going into specifics, there were many things about the role that I was in outside the podcast that were like challenging in life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And when I was starting the podcast, like not only did I just come in with a really high respect, like Kyle and I have known each other for a long time just through the camps we've gone to. Not only did I come in with like a super high respect for you, Kyle, but like I was just ready to like soak up and learn everything that I could from this person who had been in ministry for so long. Like I was like, I didn't see the podcast as the perk. I saw the stuff that I got to weren't in the podcast as like the perk. And man, yeah, like the young me in ministry, navigating through some of the things that you helped me navigate. And then talking to younger youth workers today and seeing how fast young youth workers or even experienced youth workers leave youth ministry,
Oh, yeah.
like there there's no question in my mind that one of the things that has kept me and will like keep me in ministry long term has been getting to like walk closely in youth ministry with you.
Mm.
And so super appreciate your like wanting to take on like a younger youth worker. That's just so like who you are. And so for me, like I was excited not just to like help youth workers. I didn't know that I had stuff to help necessarily, but that I was going to get to be receiving awesome stuff along the way, and then later in life lose it all because I can do it better. So no.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for reading the script that I gave you. I really appreciate it.
I'll take my $20.
I'll let you
Yeah,
guys figure that one out.
and if youth workers realize that they are connected even through denominations and different churches, man, it just makes ministry so much easier. And that's kind of a little bit of the heart behind this podcast is saying, hey, we're all youth workers. We don't have it all together, but man, if we can help each other, it just makes everything better.
For sure. I remember during this time, you're talking kind of like 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
I was a interim youth pastor, 18 years old, no, I'm so serious, trying to figure this out,
Here
and
you go.
I was desperate for like resources and like trying to figure out how to do this. And I remember looking, and there, other than your kind of big name podcasts, there really wasn't a lot about like how to do youth ministry,
Yeah.
especially given those circumstances and things. And so, I will say, if I knew you guys then, I would have listened, and it would have been awesome.
Okay,
Would
there
have been
you go.
awesome.
That's an honest evaluation right there. If I
It
knew
would be
you, I
great.
probably would have listened.
Maybe we'll see, but that's all right. Speaking of just all the episodes you guys have done, is there a favorite that you guys have just, man, I could do this one 100 times, or this one really spoke to me, or this one, you got a lot of good feedback on. Any favorite episodes from you guys?
DJ, you want to go first?
Yeah. In terms of like practicality, which is like a really important part of this podcast, we did a couple episodes somewhere in the 20s about like how to give engaging messages, illustrations, how like preaching 101 type stuff.
Mhm.
And like those are so good and helpful to even for me, like to go
Yeah.
back and listen to as like let's go back to basics here as a teaching tool. When I've got a teaching team that I work with to develop, and like as a teaching tool to go like, hey, part of your process 6 months before you're writing a message, go back and listen to these episodes. Will help like, or to be able to talk to like young speakers. We have students that speak all the time, teach, preach all the time. And helping them know like that they can walk away from a 20-minute podcast and know that you need to have like a smooth takeoff and landing. Like that's like groundbreaking, so
Sure.
they're learning about how to give a message about the Bible that they're taking to their speech class. I mean, like they're
Nice.
so practical and so good. So it's like a regular part of intern curriculum, regular part of like helping develop. And I love those episodes. And Kyle is a master of crazy illustrations. And so getting to hear behind the curtain of some of those illustrations is really fun too. So those are probably favorites for me just because they're so applicable and like easy to listen to and take notes on and learn from.
Sure.
Those are probably my favorite ones.
And
Yeah, I think we both enjoyed doing those.
I will say, I was an intern under Kyle years ago, and during that same time, my wife was an intern under DJ. And so we both were listening to this podcast, and my wife and I were talking about this the other night. We were talking about the podcast and stuff, and we actually talked about like, yeah, I remember when we had to listen to the, how to prepare a lesson, like what does it mean to teach, like what does that look like, and so it's kind of cool to come back and full circle little moment there.
I feel
But I
like
will
a
say,
little.
it's a great
I,
episode.
I feel like a professor that I force my students to read the books that I wrote.
Yeah,
This podcast that I did, go ahead and click on it and make sure you like it.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
no,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well,
Yeah, I get
for
that.
me, so not to go to nostalgia, but the first 5 episodes are still one of my favorite episode series. They didn't have a connection point, but like the first episode we did, we DJ and I wrote down probably 100 different topics that were awkward topics. Like what are the awkward parts of ministry? And the first episode, official episode, episode 1 is dating as a youth worker. I was married at the time. I am still married now, but DJ wasn't, and
I
so
was
it was.
trying, yeah, that was a nervous one for me to record because I was dating and I was trying to not be dating anymore. I was trying to get married.
You weren't
And
engaged yet. either,
And the
right?
number one, no, and the
Yep.
number one way, everyone knows that the number one way to make your girlfriend fall more in love with you is to talk about her on a podcast without her there. And
Mhm.
so I was like, am I going to step in something? Like, am I going to, like, I was nervous for that episode.
And you could tell, like the tension was just like, oh, this is so good. This is exactly what awkward should be. And I just remember, should I ask this question? I don't know. And then by the end of the episode, I was asking a little bit more yeah, awkward questions, I should say. But that was one of my favorites. And then the one that I've gotten the most feedback on and comments, and people are like, oh, I love this one, is episode 4, the friendship of pranks,
Yeah.
where all we did was just say, okay, we're connected by a prank that we did on each other at a middle school camp. And that's kind of the underlying belly of how we connected as youth workers, is through this prank that we did at a middle school camp. And we don't have time to go into it, but check out episode 4. But I just love that we went through the story and you and I are literally laughing at each other. We had a pause sometimes because we were laughing so much that it would just be disruptive in the podcast. And I just fully enjoyed just the camaraderie that we had of sharing a terrible prank we did on each other.
Yeah, totally.
So that's my episode.
Oh, there we go. Oh, those are good ones. I like those. Uh, and we'll kind of just wrap this up by, getting a little vulnerable here, but just how did your ministry life impact the podcast? How did you navigate that? Did you have to make sacrifices? How do you determine, obviously I know, this is being a youth worker is your job, so that's going to come first, but how do you intertwine those together? A little bit on that.
I'll go first. So for me, one of the things that we wanted to make this podcast is universal to any Christian denomination or anyone who works with youth, even. So it might not even just be youth workers, but teachers or parents. And so we give examples on what works and what doesn't work, but it's hard not to say what church we go to, what denominations we go to, because this isn't just about a denomination or a specific church.
Sure.
So the hardest thing for about me is sharing the real world example without sharing names or
Hmm.
enough information where people can figure out, oh, that's who you're talking
Sure.
about,
Hmm.
particularly when it is a conflict with a staff, a student, a family, a lead pastor.
Hmm.
And if you've only had one lead pastor, it really narrows it down. I had this lead pastor once. So, so that's been one of the hardest ones besides, and maybe DJ can speak into this. We mentioned this many times before, that balance, because recording a podcast, then editing, then uploading, then trying to promote the podcast. That just was one more thing that was time consuming. And that was a lot harder for DJ just because DJ's was responsible for all the important stuff and knowing the passwords and, and websites. But it just was one more thing. So that was kind of the most challenging part, is finding that balance.
Yeah, to like speak to that, which was like, I am a not admin me no good admin,
Yeah,
and
for
me do
sure.
admin podcasts. So that was like a struggle for me. I think like we all know someone or some college roommate or family member who started a podcast and did 4 episodes, and then like we never heard of it again. And like that's like I've told people like, hey, like, how you have a podcast? What should I do? And I'm like, dude, like Kyle and I spent hours and hours and days and hours like doing work to make this podcast happen. And I remember one of our first times meeting, like we went to your church, Kyle, and rolled out like a massive whiteboard and just we started with a list of 100 topics that we wanted to like get
Yeah.
to. We organized our first like something like 40 episodes. Um, and I remember us sitting there and being like, if we don't do this, this won't be sustained. Like we're going to be scratching our heads trying to figure out like what we do. And so like it's a lot, like just the prep to run a podcast over years is a lot of work. Like it gives you a respect for the people who have these huge podcasts and paid staff, because like people are working, like they're doing stuff on these shows because it takes work. So then
Yeah.
yeah, editing and posting and social and all the different things. It was a lot of like it was a lot of time, and I think more than I anticipated, but that's because like our I wasn't surprised by that. I don't think Kyle, I don't want to speak for you, but I'd
No,
probably
you're
agree.
fine.
We would say that I would think we would agree that like our intentionality for wanting to care for people who care for students is so high that there's a lot of stuff that we will be okay with, because like for our schedules, because we
Yeah.
care. So like not to like
Mhm.
just toot our own horns, but like we're very serious when we say like, man, we're doing this because we care for youth workers and we care for youth. And so like that time, while frustrating sometimes for me, it's like we're doing this. There's a reason why that we're kind of behind
Mhm.
this. So yeah, that balance was really tough, I think for sure. Um, but yeah, also again to reiterate what Kyle said too, like it's it's was so easy and so difficult to stop myself from being like, oh well, this person said this tonight, and I'm like, oh, I just talked about like a student, or I just talked about like a parent or whatever,
Mhm.
or like a
Yeah.
relevant like, and there were like many, just like this doesn't always happen, but like just to let you in behind the curtain, like there were times where Kyle told stories of mine and I told stories of Kyle's, or where
Yes.
we changed the
Sure.
names of people to protect that, because like we would never want to speak ill about anyone, but
Sure.
also want to share some like real stories that we've experienced
Mhm.
in ministry. And so we've had stories we've swapped so that we can protect some of that. Now you'll have to guess which ones they are.
Yeah, we're not we're not going to go into that, but we realize, man, DJ's church was a little bit smaller than mine, so it was a little bit easier to like, oh, you have six families that are similar to this. You can find out. One of the things that we wanted to also do is give something practical. So when you're talking about awkward stuff, we could just goof around and do segment after segment and mess around. But DJ and I wanted, like, I want to walk away with at least one practical idea per episode. And so that took more time to prep. Now, there's a lot of wonderful, awesome, practical, but not, and sometimes non-practical youth ministry podcasts out there now, particularly now. But it was just one of those things that we could have just messed around the whole time and still had enjoyable time, but that wasn't necessarily helpful. So that was
Sure.
one of the hearts behind this podcast. So one of the things and I'll wrap up here because then we want to get to know you, Mike, is there's there's ways that youth workers particularly, we're just going to talk about youth workers but ministry in general, that people leave well. And I shared about this earlier, like you could do the 2 weeks and I'm out of here, or 2 months awkwardly out of here. But both Mike and DJ, if you could give one or two practical advice on how to leave ministry well, this is one thing that you would want the listener to know. What would you say?
Yeah, I'll go first, Mike. You can, because I don't know how many times you've left before.
Just once, and I was going to college. That's easy.
Okay.
No, yeah,
It was easy money.
um, yeah. Leaving is such a weird thing because you, as a youth pastor, yeah, as a pastor, whatever capacity it's in, you have poured your heart into like when Jesus, you poured your heart into students and into people. And when Jesus said like love your God and love your neighbor as yourself, when you do that in community with people, there's no way to like rip the bandage off.
Yeah.
um like that's like really hard to do well, and so it
Mhm.
makes sense why it's never done well, because I don't know, like how do you measure what well is, like how do you
Mhm.
measure that? And so I think for me, like what I've learned in a couple times transitioning in some different ways, um leaving well, I think is a bad measuring stick. And
Okay.
I think like doing like caring about the people is a better one. Like, did I honor the people that I was leaving? And that takes out the like 2 weeks or 2 months things, or whatever. but like were people honored, were my volunteers honored, were my parents honored, were my students honored, was my family cared for and honored? Like I think if we can honor people in the process and the ways that they process, that might be the better measuring stick that I would offer as a piece
Okay.
of advice. Like just saying like, like, and this is all like metaphorical, right? Like this
Right.
is a thing that you can interpret your own way, but I think just the measuring stick is important, and saying, like, did I leave well? Did I spend enough time saying goodbye? Did I explain myself well enough? Like those questions aren't really going to dig you out of the hole. But like, were people honored in the process? Like, were grievances that I had with this really annoying volunteer who's so glad that I'm gone? Like, did I find a way to honor them in this moment? I think for me might be the better measuring stick. I don't know. That's probably what I would offer.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most important part. I mean, that the kind of the other half of that, of course, when you're talking about youth ministry and you're talking about the work that you do, uh, I think it's the second most important thing in that situation is making sure you set up that next person for whatever success means in that situation. So, you know, I mean, you could go small. Yeah, here's the file of all the email pass or passwords for everything. Here's everything that we use. But it's also like preparing your students to like process that and not just, it takes time to do that, but you don't want the next youth pastor to come in and all they hear is, man, you're just not as good as DJ was, and so that's what I'm trying
You
to
don't have the
avoid right now.
staff.
No, yeah, no, no,
So,
no, yeah.
but no, it's you want to make sure
Right.
that
That's
that
true.
you tie your ends, like your students you're clear with your students, and it does stem from, once again, how did you handle those relationships? And I think where this where I also agree with DJ on this is, for us, we could, they say you can only have about 5 to 7 relationships that you are able to actually spend time and pour into, like intentionally. Outside of that, it's really hard to give time.
Yeah.
It's one thing to go to lunch and catch up with somebody, but to grow a relationship, or to have those conversations when you have 20, 30, 40, 50 students and 20 volunteers and a congregation of 300. Like, what do? You can't end all of those relationships well. And not that those relationships are ending, but as far as given the circumstance, it's changing, and it's hard to navigate that. So once again, yeah, leaving well is a hard, you know, I think it's about your intention and leaving as well as you can. And it's different in whatever church setting that you're in, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about if you're fired, that's a totally different
I mean,
leaving
yeah,
on
yeah,
that.
for sure.
This is you're going off to college, you're getting married, it's a good ministry opportunity somewhere else. I would say, yeah, the measuring stick for sure shouldn't be, well, I left. That's not necessarily the ultimate goal. And then Mike setting up the next person, absolutely. So here's what I would say, adding to yours, Mike. Let's say you have 20 volunteers. What I found was giving as much time as you can to each of those volunteers when you leave, but also after you leave. Just because you left the church, so say, hey, I'm giving a month, and a month is
Mhm.
out, that doesn't mean you can't also go out to lunch with those previous leaders after you already left and say,
Sure.
hey, I didn't get to it. Like, we're so busy, but still giving that time. What I found that people received me leaving, even though it was painful, if I gave them just, even if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a lunch, a breakfast, coffee, even afterwards. So probably 3 months after I left my previous church, I was still meeting with people, and they were asking, why, and they're asking what to do. But when I met with someone, it gave them respect that I value their relationship enough to meet with them one on
Mhm.
one versus I'm sending a blanket email. So I would
Yeah.
just say, whatever you do, try to be as personal as possible, but realize you're going to have pain and grieve. So, with that being said, we're going to wrap up here and kind of our final part of this episode. I want to hear from Mike, and then we'll wrap up. And what does the future look like? So, Mike, um, you have officially joined the podcast, but what was your like? What
Hey,
was
wait,
your
wait.
main reason?
Did
What?
he pass the background check?
It's in process, but
Okay.
we need leaders right now.
Okay.
I
That's
didn't. I didn't fill anything out, so and I don't
Oh,
remember if I put EA or AE.
yeah,
So this might
exactly.
be a
There's a little
problem.
red thing. It's like he is someone's identity
Uh,
has been stolen.
yeah. But if you don't see me again, I don't. I don't know.
So, really
Help.
quick, why join this podcast besides the
Yeah.
money?
So yeah, the money's I didn't even know I was getting paid, and it's really nice to know. Um, so going back to when I was interning, we actually had a chance. We talk about there's an intern episode. I don't know exactly what number it is. My wife and I are on it, and a couple other interns that we spent the summer with,
That was a
and
crazy summer.
it was a crazy summer. It was memorable for sure. Uh, I gotta stay on track here. Um, but basically, I remember we recorded this intern episode and we talked about our summer. We did some fun stuff. It was supposed to be the first video recorded podcast
We did
for
video record it. We did.
we did
was
it's kind of if you go back and listen to it, you'll understand. We had to try nasty drinks and stuff, and we all got sick afterward and sued, and so that's why we're able to work for free now. But regardless, I just remember doing that, and I had a really good time going through that, and it was really fun. And telling you what DJ said earlier, I think if there's something even 3 years ago, um, I was asking myself is like this is what do I do? Like how do I handle situations? What do I do in this situation? Oh, a parent said this, or you're getting criticism, or it's something like how do I navigate? Once again, we talk about change and millions of episodes is not actually millions, but it seems like
Million.
it. Millions archives.
Yeah,
It's in the
that's
archive.
what it is.
But all of these things said is like I know I needed that at one point, and now that I have a little bit of experience under my belt, hopefully, at least one person's able to say, "Hey, I learned. I was able to take something away." And so that's where my heart is with that. I want to make my biggest thing is as long one whether it's a youth worker, a volunteer,
Yeah.
or just a pastor in any situation, like I just want to make sure that I'm able to offer what I know. All of our church circumstances, our environments, they're all different, and so it's nice to kind of see the different sides of it. And there are people in my situation where you're in a small church and you just do everything, and that's what you do, and it's fine.
Yep.
That looks a lot different than like, hey, I'm in a bigger church and I'm able to spend a little bit more time, maybe focusing on a specific age group, or you're able to kind of like laser into that. And so once again, my heart behind it is I just want volunteers, youth workers. I just want to be able to play a part in that however I can.
Nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, awesome.
Awesome.
Is there like one thing about youth ministry that you feel wildly unprepared for?
Mm.
yeah, so still to this day, and I'll probably speak into this in another episode. I mentioned I'm in a small church in Kansas. We're a church of about 80 people. The you hear youth workers talk about this. The very best thing that you can do, especially in my situation, I think, is to substitute teach in your schools. Like
Ah.
just especially I have the privilege of knowing all of the whole middle school, and basically freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. I don't know the seniors super well, but I've had a chance to interact with all of them. Like I know them by name. It's a weird thing. Um, the most awkward thing that I'm still just not prepared for is how do you handle your youth relationships like in school?
Mm.
Meaning like obviously like at youth group it's one thing to be like you're really cool with them, you're happy to see them. Now you're in a school setting. And so you're trying to balance that. You're not trying to be, obviously when you're there, you're trying to get students to come to youth group. Like you want them to come to church, but
Yeah.
you know, I have a little more restriction under as far as I can't just be like, hey guys, go play on your phones. Hope you could see you guys Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I
Tell your
I did
parents to
a
call me.
yeah, right. That's just not how it works. I did a long-term sub job for a friend of mine. She had a baby, and so from basically after spring break to about the beginning of May, like I taught sophomore English, and I just remember like I can't have the same relationship. Like
Yeah.
it's one thing to pop in for a day and just say, "Hey, get your work done," but now to officially just be like, "Hey, we have stuff to do." Students have responded two different ways. They get it or they don't, right?
I,
And so
I've never failed one of my students, so that's an interesting thing. Have you had a chance to? Yeah.
I don't know that I did, and
Okay.
it was their fault if I did. I don't
Yeah, not
remember.
saying names.
You know, turn your stuff in. So that's I think that's probably the most
Okay.
awkward thing that I'm still trying to navigate and kind of seeing how I handle that. And of course, as time goes on, as they get to know me, there seems to be a common understanding of like what this looks like. And and I've had students tell me they'll come to youth group for the first time and they're like, "Well, you're not like this at school," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't make me as mad here."
Yeah.
Just kidding. It's the environment's a lot better for the craziness, and so I think that is probably the most. I mean, as far as awkwardness goes, those moments can be hard and awkward for sure.
Well, yeah, definitely. And again, like great moments to embrace it. I love that you're subbing though. That's really cool. And
Yeah.
I totally agree. That's a great way to like be in the schools and
Oh
support
yeah.
the schools too. Hey, we have a history of guests on here, and Mike, you're not a guest, but we do something with guests on this show where we ask rapid fire questions. So I'll give you a taste. The last couple minutes of the podcast here, we want to throw some rapid fire questions your way, and then we'll just end with a taste of what's going forward and looking forward, what's coming in
Yeah.
the podcast. So listeners, you can have a taste of what's coming. But Mike, we've got some questions for you. And we're just going to rapid fire these. These are short answers, gut responses, first word that comes to your head, unless you can't say it out loud. And so we got some rapid fire questions for you. Question number one, rapid fire. Oh, wait, that's the section head. Sorry. What is the most awkward youth ministry moment you've ever experienced?
Yeah, this takes me back to when I was a student in youth ministry. I'll never just forget this. I was a high schooler leading middle school small groups. We met at the local middle school, and one of the girls smeared poop all over the walls, and I was just like,
What
like,
youth ministry were you part of? That's never
yeah,
happened.
listen. I don't
Are
have a
you
lot to
are
say.
you with a nursery like that? You're working in a
No, I
nursery?
mean this is a middle school girl, like probably. So this would be like sixth grade girl who had kind of just done this, and it was it's what I can't tell you anymore. It was just gross.
We'll have to unpack that in a different
Yeah,
episode.
there's some more to be unpacked there for sure.
All right, here's mine. If animals could talk, which would be the rudest animal?
Kangaroos for sure. I don't know why, but they be kicking people and punching people, and that's
That's good. You have two thumbs, right? You can shoot a liquid out of both one liquid from both thumbs. What two liquids are you choosing?
yeah. Alani, any flavor for sure. That's my go-to in the mornings.
Okay.
And then probably I've just been on a peach iced tea grind,
Huh.
so probably both of those.
That's a good
We gotta
choice.
have caffeine for sure.
That's a good choice. If you would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Yeah, so probably the duck-sized horses. I'm gonna lose either way, but at least I can feel good about myself.
Okay.
I'm gonna get tired though for sure.
What is if youth ministry had a warning label? What would it say?
Please help. I don't know. I don't know why. That seems to be the common one. Please help.
Um, what's the most awkward emoji you accidentally sent?
Gosh, I don't know. This is a hard one for rapid fire.
All
Uh,
right, here's what can I say this? The reason why I ask this is I'm I'm over 40, okay? So I don't really send emojis. I didn't realize that millennials didn't really send emojis. It's more of a Gen Z kind of thing.
mhm.
And I keep saying and sending LOL. All right? Do
Yeah,
you guys send LOL still?
Oh
sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. I send that to a teenager and they're like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, laugh
No,
out loud." And he's like, "No, we
no,
don't do that anymore. It's an emoji." And he sent this back to me. He's like, "Never send that to me again." Like he was offended.
that's
So
crazy.
I had
That's
this
not
huge
yeah. It's
argument.
just
So that's
it's
just that
still
student. That's
no.
not my generation.
That's listen.
just that student.
I'm Gen Z myself, and I think that that's crazy. I still
Okay.
send.
Okay, I feel
LOLs help
better.
every conversation. That just softens the blow, no
I
matter
feel
what.
better. Okay.
Okay, I have one last question for you. What is one thing that you're already nervous you'll mess up on the podcast?
Yeah. You know, probably what Kyle spoke into earlier, just about name dropping or giving too much of a story to be like, obviously I want to protect any names or individuals or organizations that we speak about. And so probably just slipping up on that part and just, I'm a good storyteller and you know, don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
you've survived the gauntlet of rapid fire questions. Way to go.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, those are pretty easy. So we might have to
Thank you
do that
guys for
again.
not making my brain explode at
Yeah.
11 a.m.
Yeah, well, hey, we want to close the podcast today by looking forward for what's coming for the podcast. So, Kyle and Mike, I've got some questions for you to fill our listeners in on what's coming in the future. So, as you think about this podcast and what it's been for a long time, and now this shift happening, what do you hope in this next season the Embrace the Awkward podcast like becomes? What do you hope? What are you hopeful for in the future?
That we can earn $1 million.
Yeah,
Uh,
We're on the same page. This is
there you
good.
go. We talked about this. This is the only reason why I'm doing it.
right.
Um, yeah. So one, we want to build on what the foundation has been set up. So there's going to be some changes. There always is programmatic wise when a new person comes in, but we want to continue on being practical, being awkward, and being fun. So that's going to continue. But we also want to tackle some new subjects. Dealing with particularly like small church, like when you're 80 people and you have to do everything, that's a lot. And I think a
For
lot of
sure.
a lot of churches are struggling because the youth ministry or the church is just small. So how do you
Mhm.
run with that? I want to deal with a few things as Sunday nights versus Wednesday nights, combine middle school, high school, or keep them separate. All
Mhm.
that kind of stuff is one of the things that some subjects I want to tackle. And then I also want to move into the video aspect. So now you can see me. Like when I started recording this podcast, I had hair. Okay, I did. I swear.
Yeah,
And
right.
this summer, I shaved it all off because I was tired people guessing, is he going bald? And no, now I'm just straight balds. Okay, and you can show off the merch. Look at that.
Look at
Look at
that.
that.
Look at that. We got merch, and so that's one thing that we're going to be expanding: video, merch. We're going to be everywhere. So
Yeah.
that's just something fun. I have no
Sides of,
idea.
sides of buses, billboards.
Yeah,
Uh, you're gonna be watching you're on Netflix, and here we are as an ad. It's gonna be
yeah.
great.
Top 10 podcasts on Spotify. That's our goal. No,
Yeah,
we're just gonna have fun, Mike. Right? Our goal is not just to be popular, but how can we help youth workers who I think have a harder time in youth ministry than ever has been in my 20 years of youth ministry. Today's youth workers have the hardest I've ever seen. So I want to help them. Mike, what about you?
yeah. I think other than having 1 million subscribers and a YouTube deal, I think just offering ourselves like a beacon of hope for the youth worker who's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, or how am I going to get through this situation? How do I handle this situation? Even if we offer something they can barely grasp onto, as long as it's something, that's my goal, and that's what I would like to see. We would all agree we don't want to see youth workers leave.
Yeah.
Obviously, unless God is calling them to that, it's a bad situation. Whether go into a better situation. We don't want to see youth workers get burnt out. And so, whatever me personally, whatever I can do to speak into that and help that, that's my goal in that.
Awesome.
Love that. So if we want to, what I'm hearing you guys say, is like with the heart of the podcast has always been talking about awkward things that help people that are beacons of hope or beacons of light. Mike, I love that you said that. Let's land the plane here. I think this is a great place to land that kind of centers us around like the mission of this podcast. And this is for everyone to answer. Why is leaning into the awkward like an act of leadership? Like, why is leaning into the awkwardness of ministry life? Why is that worth it?
I
Go
let
ahead,
me
Mike.
start on this one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking about this morning, just briefly, and part of being a good leader is being able to address. It's your job to address situations. Um, not everything. Youth ministry these days, a lot of parents are looking to youth workers to realistically parent their kids in some situations. Like they don't have the answers. They don't have, maybe they don't know what to do, or maybe they just don't think it's a big deal. But all of a sudden, that responsibility is falling onto our shoulders, and that's a hard thing. But if we don't address it, I think we aren't doing our due diligence there as far as what God has called us to. And it kind of just brings me to like think about some of the most awkward moments in the Bible. I mean, think about the Last Supper when Jesus is like, "Hey, one of you are going to betray me." Did
Yeah.
Jesus really need to have that conversation? Or could he have just been like, "Yeah, obviously this is going to happen and we're just going to go through with it." Right? I imagine sitting at that table and being like, "Yeah, this is awkward." Because
Yeah.
you're like, "Is it me? Is it me, Jesus?"
And
You
it
know?
feels like they're like, where's Judas going? Like there's no
Yeah.
connection. Like they're like, wait, what?
And so like in that, if Jesus is embracing the awkward in such a big situation, um, compared to the situations that we go through, for sure, it's way different. Um, it's important for us to do the same. And so he set the example. It's up to us to follow that, even if once again it is awkward, even if it is a hard conversation, even if we don't want to. Like it is our responsibility, I believe.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is our responsibility as youth workers, as pastors, parents. You can't avoid the painful situations just because they're painful. So
Mhm.
this embrace the awkward has been like my life mission statement. Like this is I've totally built that around because you can't grow when you're comfortable. You can't. It's impossible to grow while you're comfortable. And so what I would say is why it's a super important part of leadership is the fact that when you embrace those awkward moments, you actually help other people embrace their awkward moments. That could help other people embrace their awkward moments because awkward moments happen all the time in life. And
Mhm.
if our ultimate goal is to stay as comfortable or be non-afraid or non-full of anxiety or concerned, then man, we're actually going to be really stunted. And I see that in a generation growing up is somehow anxiety stops us. Like older generations, when they had anxiety about something, sorry, it still needs to be done, and you push through. But now it's a reason to stop. And in fact, you're insensitive if you don't. So I'm not saying we just need to toughen up. What I'm saying is, how can we handle people who never have been given the skill set or the tools to handle anxiety, awkwardness better? And so, if we can do that as youth workers, we're going to make stronger people and therefore a stronger world, stronger families, stronger churches.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I just to piggyback on that, my answer is pretty short here because I agree and like I love all of that. I think for me, as just a horribly awkward person growing up, I can look back on the ways the scripture that comes to mind is when Jesus is talking about that we'll have an advocate in the Holy Spirit, and I can look for the ways that the Holy Spirit has advocated for me and on my behalf
Mm-hmm.
in many situations, and shown up for me in many awkward moments that have been just not good or awkward for me. And when I think about the lens of youth ministry, youth workers, younger youth workers, older youth workers who are feeling like conflicted about ministry, like why would I not want that same? Why would I not want to like share that, impart that with other people too?
Sure.
And that's a huge motivator for me. The embrace the awkward mantra is going nowhere for me, um, and this departure for me. So just to end with like a thanks, Kyle, for like inviting me onto the podcast, and I'm super pumped about what we got to do together, and that we get to continue to be friends. And I love being the biggest cheerleader
Oh,
for the
oh,
race.
okay. I didn't know we decided to be friends. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Me friends too.
Well, it's not Facebook official, but
Uh,
I will put you in my Instagram bio. So
Yeah, and so it feels like it's just because I'm the one staying that somehow it's my podcast. It's never just been my podcast. And so DJ, you have been a vital part and equal partner throughout all of this, and I'm so grateful for your heart and passion and your willingness to say, okay, this is something that I can't contribute as much as it needs to be. And you are leaving well. And I'm just so thankful for that. And we'll definitely have you on as a future guest host. And then we can kind of say, okay, how is it not having a mustache anymore? Because I want to know after this month. And we'll jump right in. So I'm excited for Mike and his experience and tenacity, and he has some great stories to tell that you heard a little bit about it here. So we're going to be talking about that, Mike. But I'm so grateful that you're coming on. It's like, hey, let's do this, let's ride,
Yeah.
and it's already been interesting just today. So I'm
Yeah,
super
for
excited.
sure.
Hey, I have an iconic ending that I've done since like episode one, where I have thanked the listener for being our friend, and I'm gonna do that one last time, Mike, if you're okay with that. I'm gonna do it this. I'm gonna do it one last time, but I want to tell you really quick where it came from
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
really stupid where it came from. I've ended episode after episode with, "Hey, thanks so much for listening," and then I would say the thing, right?
yeah. I love that awkward pause.
It came from one of my favorite. This is just a silly thing, but one of my favorite movies of all time is The Truman Show. That's like
Okay.
an all-time favorite for me. That came out. I think I was born, yeah, when it came out. So it was later in life that I saw it, but I just love that movie. And one of the last scenes and one of his signature lines is like, "And in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night." That's like
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the things he said, which I
Hmm.
love. And I think that I just like was inspired by that with the like, "And thanks for being our friend." And then the awkward pause just happened very naturally. And
Yeah,
so it
I
turned
remember
it
the first time I was like, wait, and I try to say something, and then you're like, oh, and thank you for being my friend.
which is just perfect. So, Mike, I am happy to pass the torch to you if you would like to receive, and you don't have to continue with it. My feelings won't be hurt publicly if you don't continue with it, but privately, it'll be a disaster. So, feel free to steal that. But if you guys are cool with it, I'm gonna end this one more time, and we'll call it a day.
Okay.
Sure thing.
Listeners, thank you so much, as always, for listening. And thank you for being our friend. We'll see you soon.